Penguin Random House Audio presents Unmarriageable. This is the author, Soniah Kamal. For Mansoor Wasti, friend, love, partner, and Barak, Indus, Mirage, heart, soul, life. Upon the whole, however, I am well satisfied enough. The work is rather too light and bright and sparkling. It wants shade. It wants to be stretched out here and there with a long chapter of sense, if it could be had. If not, of solemn specious nonsense about something unconnected with the story. An essay on writing, a critique on Walter Scott, or the history of Bonaparte, or anything that would form a contrast and bring the reader with increased delight to the playfulness and epigrammatism of the general style. Jane Austen, on Pride and Prejudice, in a letter, 1813, to her sister, Cassandra. I have no knowledge of either Sanskrit or Arabic. I have never found one among them, Orientalists, who could deny that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. The intrinsic superiority of the Western literature, we are free to employ our funds as we choose, that we ought to employ them in teaching what is best worth knowing, that English is better worth knowing than Sanskrit or Arabic, that it is possible to make natives of this country thoroughly good English scholars, and that to this end our efforts ought to be directed. We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and colour, but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals and in intellect. To that class we may leave it to refine the vernacular dialects of the country. From Thomas Babington Macaulay's Minute on Education, 1835. Part 1, December 2000. Chapter 1. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a girl can go from pauper to princess or princess to pauper in the mere seconds it takes for her to accept a proposal. When Alys Binat began working at age 20 as the English literature teacher at the British School of Dalipabad, she had thought it would be a temporary solution to the sudden turn of fortune that had seen Mr. Barkat Bark Binat and Mrs. Khushbu Pinky Binat and their 5 daughters, Janazba, Alizba, Marizba, Kitiara, and Lady, move from big city Lahore to backwater Dalipabad. But here she was, 10 years later, 30 years old, and still in the job she'd grown to love despite its challenges. Her new batch of 9th graders was starting Pride and Prejudice, and their first homework had been to rewrite the opening sentence of Jane Austen's novel, always a fun activity and a good way for her to get to know her students better. After Alice took attendance, she opened a fresh box of multicoloured chalks and invited the girls to share their sentences on the blackboard. The first to jump up was Rosenama, a crusader for duty and decorum, and one of the more trying students. Rosenama deliberately bypassed the coloured chalks for a plain white one, and Alice braced herself for a reimagined sentence exalting a traditional life, marriage, children, death. As soon as Rosenama ended with mere seconds it takes for her to accept a proposal, the class erupted into cheers, for it was true. A ring did possess magical powers to transform into pauper or princess. Rosenama gave a curtsy and, glancing defiantly at Alice, returned to her desk. "Good job," Alice said. "Who wants to go next?" As hands shot up, she looked affectionately at the girls, at their wooden desks, their winter uniforms impeccably washed and pressed by dhobis and maids, their long braids, for good girls did not get a boyish cut like Alice's, draped over their books, and she wondered who they'd end up becoming by the end of high school. She recalled herself at their age, an eager to learn, though ultimately naive Miss Know-it-all. "Miss Alice, me, the class clown said, pumping her hand energetically. Alice nodded, and the girl selected a blue chalk and began to write. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a young girl in possession of a pretty face, a fair complexion, a slim figure, and good height is not going to happily settle for a very ugly husband if he doesn't have enough money, unless she has the most incredible bad luck, which my cousin does. The class
Sample complete. Ready to continue?